Just to give you an idea of how prevalent heroin is in these areas, in the past year, 3 teenagers have died from an overdose on this street alone. The Westlake landfill is about a mile over that hill, but this week the EPA confirmed that radioactive runoff was found here at Creve Coeur Lake, where there are constantly summertime swimmers. Standing in the front lawn of the St. Peter's Police Station, and that building right there behind us is the Planet Fitness that saw 4 car break-ins last week. The proximity is obviously not deterring the criminals. Officer Wilson says heroin is not just a problem in the city, but that Highway 70 is making it easily spread into St. Charles and even further into the suburbs. A typical day for DEA officer Juan Wilson includes investigating leads and shutting down drug dealers. More specifically, he wants to find the person who sold the drugs that caused somebody to overdose. He didn't start his law enforcement career with the intention of battling drugs. After graduating from the police academy, Wilson worked as a patrol officer, but it didn't take long for him to know he wanted to do something more.
I really wanted to get into narcotics. I know I wanted to get into a specialty field, and I thought that might be the best way to kind of serve my community.
Wilson first knew he wanted to focus on heroin when he lost his father-in-law to an overdose. He spent about 2.5 years as an undercover task force officer in hopes of getting drug dealers off the streets. But a normal day at work turned into a day that he would never forget.
Towards the end of my task force time there, I got robbed at gunpoint. That kind of put a lot of things in perspective, especially since at the time my son was going through chemotherapy and radiation treatment from brain cancer. So I wanted to kind of slow things down.
So Wilson moved from undercover in St. Charles to being part of the DEA's task force team. But slow is not the right word to describe his job. Officer Wilson is currently working on 35 overdose cases, many of which are right here in St. Charles County. DEA Group Supervisor Kevin Merkel knew immediately that Wilson would fit in with his team.
I recognize the talent that he has for doing the overdose and the passion that he has doing community outreach and talking with folks about the dangers of addiction. I know that he's more involved than any other policeman that I've ever worked with.
You do one thing, there's so much more that needs to be done. I always feel like I'm not doing enough. And so I'm always trying harder and harder and harder to try to, be more vigilant in the community.
One group Wilson is involved in is Walking for Wellness. He became active after noticing a pattern. He says families who lost a family member to heroin were being treated poorly by law enforcement. He feels joining the Walking for Wellness group was a way to end that cycle. St. Peter's mother Guy Vigna lost her daughter to heroin 3 years ago. She started the Walking for Wellness group to raise awareness and says Wilson is a key player in the local fight against drugs.
As a police officer, you can't be my enemy in this particular case. You have to be my friend, and vice versa. He takes the time to meet you, he comes to your house, he learns about your family. He has truly been such a very kind, gentle soul.
Having 2 children of his own, Wilson understands the fear of having a child get involved in heroin, and he keeps that in mind every time he sees a young person die from an overdose.
Every victim from a heroin overdose that I've either arrived on scene or saw the photos, they're still in my head. They don't go away.
We did not always make the best choices.
When kids arrived at Orchard Farm Middle School on Thursday, they were excited about a full day without classes. What they didn't know is they would learn a lesson just as important as math and science.
Hopefully they leave knowing that the choice to make is to not do drugs, and hopefully what they hear and see today helps them make those choices.
The students heard experiences from a DEA agent, a presentation from a former drug user, and had a class on the dangers of prescription drugs.
All the speakers are engaging, and it's been great information.
In between presentations, the kids visited stations in the hallway that offered prizes and gave more information about the dangers of drug use. Guidance counselor Danielle Murley says she hasn't seen many drug cases at the middle school, and they could be reaching the kids with this information just in time.
Thank goodness we don't have too many of these cases, but you never know when a student of ours is going to be experienced with that, whether it's going to be now or a year to 10 years down the road. So even if we impact one student's life, that's all that matters from today.
Sixth grader Bryce Westerfeld said he learned not only about how to say no, but also what to do if you see someone else using. There was one presentation in particular that caught his attention.
One guy, he ended up having to go to prison and quit a job, get divorced, and it sounds really bad.
He was talking about Chris Neiman, a recovering addict who is one of the few people who was able to get themselves clean after suffering an addiction to heroin. Now Chris spreads his message to keep kids from making the same mistakes that he did.
I didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up. You know, when I was that age, I didn't know about addiction. I didn't realize it was behaviors that went along with it too that portrayed that. You know, so even though I might not have thought about being an addict at their age, I definitely displayed that quality. You know?
The number of visitors at the Arch is at a historic low point of 2.5 million people per year. The City Arch River Project is hoping to attract an extra 1 million visitors per year. The economic impact of that many visitors is the equivalent to adding a second Cardinals baseball season. The Gateway Arch has been attracting visitors for decades.
I visited the Arch in the past and I enjoyed it with my own children. I wanted to bring my grandchildren to experience the Arch.
But lanes of traffic have cut off the Arch from the rest of the city until now. The City Arch River Project started in 2013 with the intention of making it easier and safer for people to enjoy the Arch. Project Communications Coordinator Tom Nagel says the updates will make the Arch more accessible and more beautiful.
Well, the Arch is not just a symbol of our city, it's a national monument, and it really belongs to the whole country. It's a monument to the westward expansion of the United States.
St. Louis City and county taxpayers voted in favor of a sales tax increase to help fund the project. That will cover $90 million of the cost. The rest of the project is funded by $69 million worth of state and federal grants and $221 million in donations.
So this is not just a project in downtown St. Louis, this is a regional project that connects the Arch not just physically to the city, but culturally to the rest of our region.
Renovations include a new museum under the Arch, renovations to the parks around the Arch, and the addition of a circulation loop, a 1.7-mile bicycle and pedestrian trail around the Arch. Tom Weiland and his wife have been keeping tabs on the project from the start.
Every time we came to town, wanted to come by and see how it was progressing. It's looking awesome. We just walked through the park expansion behind us, and we really think that's very beautiful.
Nagel says the riverfront will open in May. The grounds around the Arch and park will open this fall, and the new museum is expected to open next year. Rides to the top of the Arch are currently open. For LUTV News, I'm Cassie Hall. Coming up on LUTV News, a major change is happening on Highway 40 this morning. Find out what it is and if you should avoid the area. Plus, that's not the only place you'll see traffic. The new project on I-70 in St. Charles might have you looking for a detour. And low student enrollment is leaving Mizzou dorms empty. Those stories plus sports, weather, and more ahead on LUTV News. Welcome to this special edition of LUTV News. I'm Cassie Hall. MoDOT started a year-long project on I-70 between 5th Street and Highway 94 this month. The project includes adding a divergent diamond interchange at the intersection of I-70 and 5th Street, interstate access to Fairgrounds Road, and the addition of a 4th lane on both directions of I-70. Westbound I-70 lanes between 5th Street and Highway 94 have been shifted and narrowed. The two right exit lanes approaching Highway 94 will be closed through May, but the exit remains open. Drivers are also seeing slowdowns on Highway 40. That's because the other part of the Daniel Boone Bridge is coming down. The demolition is scheduled for 10 a.m. this morning. Crews will close all lanes of eastbound and westbound I-64 at 9:45. All lanes will reopen once the debris has been cleared. Those interested in watching the demolition can park at the Chesterfield Valley Athletic Complex. Spectators will then have to walk down to the Monarch Levee Trail to the viewing area. A Maplewood man is in jail as a result of a supposed prank gone wrong. Police say Emmanuel Perkins walked into Sole Survivor Leather in Maplewood last week with a gun. He pointed the gun at the store owner and demanded money. The store owner said he feared for his life until he realized the gun was a multicolored water pistol. He demanded Perkins to leave and called the police. Perkins told police it was a prank. He is charged with first-degree attempted robbery and being jailed on $25,000 bond. A St. Peter's heroin abuser will spend 30 years in prison for brutally attacking a police officer. Last July, 28-year-old Brandon Baker attacked St. Peter's officer John Drummond while attempting to escape from a cell at the local police headquarters. Baker punched Drummond in the face 38 times and slammed his head into the concrete floor. Drummond was hospitalized and needed surgery. The incident has been called a heroin horror story on steroids. Baker has apologized, saying that heroin had taken control of him. Lawmakers are considering taxing Missouri drug dealers. Senator Wayne Wallingford told a Senate panel this on Thursday. Dealers would face an additional charge of tax evasion if they are caught with more than 35 grams of marijuana or a gram of other drugs. Wallingford also says he intends for the proposal to raise money for law enforcement and to lower drug use. 2 residence halls will go unused at Mizzou this fall. Laws Hall and Lathrop Hall will be closed due to declining enrollment. A university spokesperson said closing the dorms will leave the school with 680 less beds and save the university about $200,000 per year. Both halls were already scheduled to be closed for demolition in January of 2017. The university estimates freshman enrollment will decline by 900 or more students this fall. 3 residents are fighting the city of St. Louis to stop the spending of tax dollars on a new sports stadium. St. Louis University professor and legal clinic supervisor John Amon filed a motion of rehearing after a suit filed by the public board running the Edward Jones Dome was rejected on Tuesday, according to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. 3 of his clients directed him to file this motion, arguing that 2002 city ordinance would require a public vote prior to spending tax money. A man and his best friend had an unexpected happy ending after losing each other in February. An 18-month-old German Shepherd named Luna fell off of a fishing boat in the Pacific Ocean. She was lost for almost 5 weeks and assumed to be dead. Luna managed to swim to San Clemente Island, a land owned and operated by the U.S. Navy. She was greeted by naval staff who were able to reunite her with her family on Wednesday. Coming up on LUTV News, the city of St. Louis wants more visitors to come downtown to see the arch. See how they plan to lure sightseers to the grounds.